Hey, welcome back. So this is blues call and response. It's in the style of John Lee Hooker, and we have a bunch of examples here that we're going to talk about, a bunch of riffs that we're going to talk about, and this is all over basically an E blues scale or an E minor pentatonic. And this one's really fun to play. It's great to kind of accompany yourself with this call and response type thing. And this is a great one to do. So let's jump in and talk about it. So first we're going to talk about this thing called the call and response type. And then after that, we're going to go over a couple other riffs that we can put in there so that you can have more to play and you can play longer. And the third thing we're going to talk about is to put that whole thing in context of a 12-bar blues. So let's jump right in and start with a call and response. So what is call and response? Call and response is a blues technique when people are soloing where they'll play kind of a phrase, which it's kind of like a question, and then the answer will come later. So what we mean in this context is this is the question, and this is kind of the response or the answer. Okay, so it's really fun to play. Let's go over the riffs and the call and response. So the call is the only thing that changes here. So that means the first thing. So let's go over the first riff. So basically what we're doing is we're sliding this shape up. Okay, so this shape looks like this. Basically we're on the second fret of the third string, first fret of the second string. We're sliding that shape up until we're on the fourth and third frets. Okay, and we're going to alternate those notes. Okay, then we're going to slide back down to the second fret, open, then 202. Okay, so the whole riff together is this. Then the response. Okay, let's go over the other types of calls that we can do. The response is always the same. It's always this O, 3, open A, and then open E string. Oftentimes in the blues, they'll do this kind of pop sound like that, where they're kind of basically getting their thumb underneath the string and pulling it upwards so that it pops down to the frets and makes this real percussive pop sound. You don't have to do that, but it's kind of a tradition that people do in the blues. So that's the first riff. That's the famous riff. Okay, that's the famous riff. The other riffs are kind of variations on that based on the minor pentatonic scale. So let's go through here and play the second riff. So this sounds like this. Okay, so we're going on the D string and playing 2, open G string, 2 on the G string, open, and then 202 on the D string again. All together one more time. Okay, so that's the second riff. Riff number 3 is kind of following down the minor pentatonic scale, starting on the 7th of the scale. So, okay, kind of like an E7 chord, but here we have this phrase. Okay, so that's very similar. We have this. Okay, we're going down that minor pentatonic scale. 3-0 on the B string, 2-0 on the G string, 202 on the D string. Okay, back to that response. For the call and response type, that's the 3 main calls that we're going to do. So, and then also. Notice that all those phrases end on the note E. So, that's the note E. That's the note E. That's the note E. So all these phrases were ending on the note E. These are phrases over the E7 chord when we put this in context, or just E major. Okay. So let's talk about some other riffs that we can do. This is another common variation. It's very similar, but rhythmically it's a little bit different, and it sounds like this. Okay. So that phrase, we have some of the kind of subtleties that we have here is these little kind of ghost slides. So first we're going to play this 3rd fret on the B string. Okay, then we're going to slide down to the 2nd fret of the G string. And then end with that 0202 on the D string. So all together it sounds like this. Okay. Great. Another riff that we can do is just going down the minor pentatonic scale. Again, we're trying to end all these phrases here on the note E, okay? So this one sounds like this. Okay, so that's just going down the minor pentatonic scale. We have 3-0 on the first string, 3-0 on the second string, 2-0 on the third string, and then landing on the note E, second fret of the D string. Okay, I just want to talk about kind of the technique I'm using to pick these notes. It's a little bit different than the classical and the Spanish or in the other methods that we've talked about before. Because this is kind of a more percussive type. We want the notes to be kind of short. They didn't really play these long notes that would extend through the chord progressions. They made all the notes very, very short most of the time. And then also they added a lot of aggressive kind of aggressive attitude with these notes by doing those kind of pops. Okay, and how I'm doing those pops is I'm kind of really getting under the string here and then kind of really pulling the string up. Of course, I'm exaggerating that a lot now, but you can play it like that all the time. I think that sounds really cool, and a lot of great players really play it like that very often. I try to mix it in just a little bit. We've talked about the form of the 12-bar blues, and this follows the exact 12-bar blues that everybody follows. So we basically have a 1 chord, which is an E7 in this case, for 4 bars. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2. Then we're going to play phrases over this A7 for 2 bars. Okay, back to that E7 for 2 more bars. Now we're on the last 4 bars, B7, A7, E7. 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and this is the whole phrase. Notice that we have a pickup measure, meaning we kind of are starting at the 12th bar and then cycling over. So the whole song, the 12-bar blues actually starts on this note. Okay, so this phrase is the kind of pickup into the song. So here we go. So I'm going to play this whole thing through, and then we'll talk about each of the pieces. Starting over. Okay, and then it would repeat several times. Now we'll notice here that the beginning phrases are the same as what we've already talked about. So we're going to skip ahead all the way to measure 4, where we have the A7 chord being implied. So let's actually skip to the measure right before that. So we have this phrase. Okay, this note is the first note of what we call the 4 chord, the A7 chord. Okay, now this is the note A. No coincidence here, because that's where we're playing this A7 chord, or that's where the A7 harmony is being implied. So that's why we're landing on this A note. Okay, so basically we do the same phrases over E minor, or E minor pentatonic, or E blues scale, but when we're going to the new chord, for instance, an A chord, or for instance, a B7 chord coming up later, we're going to land on that note for the chord, the root note of the chord. In this case, it's going to be A. So one more time, this is what that sounds like. A. Then we play the phrase, that response phrase, this time over an A chord. So this sounds like this. A, C, D, A. So it's the same kind of O, 3, O, O, like that, except up a string set. So we're starting on the A string. And that's because it's over an A chord. Then we basically go back to the E chord. So in measure 6, we're going back to the E7. And it sounds like this. We're landing on that E note, of course. Okay, then we're playing a phrase that's going to go into the B7 chord. So that means we need to land on a note B. So that could be either this note or this note. Okay. In this case, we're going to land on this note, second fret of the A string. So getting into that B chord, it sounds like this. Okay, notice we're playing that phrase. That's the kind of response over the B chord, and that leads us into an A7 chord. So we're landing on that A note. Okay, then we're going to go back to our main phrase, because now we're on E again. Okay, and then we're going to cycle the whole song over again. So the main things to take away here is that when you're playing a phrase, the riffs are usually built from the E minor pentatonic scale or the E blues scale. In this case, it's exclusively the E minor pentatonic scale. So all phrases are built on that, all calls. The answers are landing on the root note of the chord that's being implied at that time. So it's really important that you understand the 12-bar blues and its form so that you'll know when to land on a certain note and make sure that that is at the right time. So this is another one of those songs that you can play forever. As you learn more techniques and more elements of soloing and call and response, more scales, more note choices, more chord harmonies that you can apply. You can do this actually over a jazz blues in the future. This is stuff that you can you can take this and build upon it and always play this. So really, have fun with this one. You can get creative with it. Learn these phrases that I've given you here, but you can make up your own phrases and do the response and make up your own responses as well too. So have fun with this one, and that's it for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.